Hi guys, what we will do in this particular section is we will be talking about the student, course and instructor relationship and then draw a component diagram. Now because um, it is easier for all of us to understand in the same context, I am giving the course, student and instructor component diagram. But what you can do is, based on this, you will be able to relate anything in your project from the component diagram viewpoint. Now, whatever tool you are using, based on that, you go to the tool and you can open a new project. In fact, I will close this one. That will be better. So let me close this one. We have spoken about this already. Let me now open a new UML component diagram, and what we will do here is we will be drawing a component, okay, a component diagram basically, right? Now from the student viewpoint, course viewpoint and the instructor viewpoint, what are the three components directly? If you have to think what is the three components comes to your mind, definitely instructor will be a component. So let me take an instructor component. So I will name this as instructor, okay. This is one component. As I said you, the symbol will be there for any component whatever you are drawing. Take the second component and name it as course. Take the third component and name it as student. Okay, now I have drawn three components. It is as simple as this. You are just dragging and dropping and naming the component. You need to make sure that you identify the components what you are dragging, and it is having this kind of symbols, right? This represents a symbol. Now what you can think of is, say the instructor is an UI which is built in React, Angular or anything what you are thinking, okay, but it is behaving as an UI component to us, okay. Course is another UI component which may again be built on Angular, React or a plain HTML, whatever you can think of as a component in the front end is what I am talking about at the moment. And student is another UI component. Now this UI component may be talking to a database for storing the information, right? So what we can do is we can bring a database entity over here, and to do so, depending upon which kind of tool you are using, you will be able to see a category where, or in some tools you can directly derive that. So you just, in visual paradigm, what you have to do, just click on entity and you will get that entity. What you do is you drag this and put it over here and name this entity as a database entity, okay. And that database entity is a centralized at this point in time. Say for example, if you are writing a microservice, you can have three different entity, instructor having an instructor database or entity from one particular database. A component, course component can have a course table or course database, and for student you can have a student entity. Now this is more applicable when you are writing a microservice, and in the world of today most of the people prefer writing microservice rather than a standalone one database, the instructor talking to the same database, course talking to the same database and student talking to the same database. That way these days we are not designing, right? So I'm just taking that example and I am just creating. Now that you have taken these three entities, at the moment we don't need to define the relationship. What we can do is we can just put the pointers or the links depending upon what you want to do. What I will do is, now I will create a dependency of the instructor UI on the instructor database, because say for my particular project which is building a small microservice which will be talking to the instructor and later it can be scalable, right? So to do so, what you will do, you will just call this dependency tag and with this arrow you can conclude that. Okay, you have the provision to write any activity. Say for example, in our case we are accessing the database. Okay, so that is what I have written here. In the next case also I will do the same thing. I will create the course having dependency on the course database. Again, this is accessing, so you can write access over there, and same applies for the student. And I think this I have to change it to student. Okay, and in this case what you can do is, again you say access. So this is how you are building a bigger component if you have to build. And there are many things which you can put together. Say for example, you are dragging this inside the diagram overview. What you can do is you can bring all the pointers. Now if I do this here, it may overlap. So what you can do, you can just call your components inside the diagram. I have not started with that view, that's why it is not coming. And then you bring your entity. I mean, if I have to bring the entities here, and then you are naming this as course management. So this will look better than what I have drawn, and you can drag it little further to look it good. Okay, the same diagram I'm just telling, it will give you a better view. And then you create the dependent. I'm not showing the whole thing, I'm just telling you that how you can draw the same diagram, giving a better view of the components, right? Apart from that, what I think is you just need to also remember that what are the dependency you have. Say for example, if the instructor is assigning something, say for example like grades and schedule, or schedule, whatever we have spoken earlier, and how the instructor and the student are associated with those grades, you can think of that. So in cases the instructor will update the instructor database, but there will be cases where there will be a dependency of the instructor on the course database, or maybe the course UI component is calling the instructor through a microservice or through a REST call to get certain amount of data. When the instructor is assigning course or instructor is grading the course, interdependency stays. So in those cases you have to just think and start relating that how you want to create those interdependencies. Okay, so I'm not going in those details at the moment, but for time being, I think you have understood that how to develop and build your database. So these all are database components. Now you can create a view of the database component. You can define one-to-one relationship, or what kind of relationship you want to define, at what point you want to trigger those relationships is something you can define. But from the component viewpoint, you have to remember these are the things how you are building a whole UI2 database. At this point in time, it is a two-tier architecture I'm talking about, not three-tier and not multi-tier. But in a two-tier architecture, if you are building a very simple UI component that talk to the database in the form of microservices, this is a component diagram for student, course and instructor, right? So that is all about the component diagram. Let's move to the next section.